Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff's former coach accused of belittling Iga Świątek by fans after controversial comment on Wimbledon glory. Tennis fans have rallied behind Iga Świątek after a comment from Coco Gauff's former coach, Brad Gilbert, sparked backlash online. Gilbert's remark, which pointed out that Świątek didn't face any top 10 opponents during her victorious 2025 Wimbledon run, was widely perceived as a thinly veiled jab at the Polish star's latest Grand Slam success. Iga Świątek dominates at Wimbledon despite opponent quality. Świątek, the former world number 1 and now a 6-time Grand Slam champion, clinched her first Wimbledon title. She dismantled number 13 seed Amanda Anisimova 6-0, 6-0 in the final, a rare double bagel in a Slam championship match. The 8th seed had a commanding run to the final, defeating the likes of Paulina Kudermetova, Katie McNally, Danielle Collins, Clara Tauson, Ludmila Samsonova, and Belinda Bencic. Yet, for some observers, including Gilbert, the absence of top 10 competition in her draw stood out more than the dominance she displayed throughout the fortnight. Gilbert, who coached Gauff from August 2023 until their split in September 2024, took to X after the final to spotlight that particular detail, writing, "Crazy zany face Iga pop tourney stat, the highest-ranked player. She has played this at Wimbledon. Samsonova, at 19 AA, is ranked 12. Not sure when last time someone won a slam without facing a top 10 player." The post, which came just hours after Świątek's triumph, immediately drew criticism from fans who felt it undermined her achievement. Tennis followers didn't hold back, accusing Gilbert of trying to diminish Świątek's moment of glory, especially given his ties to her rival Gauff, who lost in the first round at SW19. One fan questioned the intent behind the comment, writing, "Why are you belittling Iga Świątek's success right after her Wimbledon triumph? Is that appropriate for a renowned coach who trained her rival?" Another drew comparisons with Ashley Barty, noting that she won 3 slams without a top 10 win like it's not that rare, challenging the notion that Świątek's run was exceptional in that regard. Several users also criticized the logic of blaming Świątek for not facing top seeds, pointing out that she can't control who advances in the draw. One pointed out, "Takes like this has to stop. 128 players in the majors draw. 32 are seeded. Yes, it's a stat, but it's not the champion and lower-ranked players' fault that top-ranked players fell through early. You are invalidating all the hard work of the players and the champion." Another sarcastically added, "It's not her fault that Coco and Peggy lost in the first round. Cry harder, Grandpa," referencing early exits from other favorites in the draw. It is not Iga's fault that they were off the tournament earlier. She could have played Coco, JPEG, Mira, Rybakina, and Navarro, but they lost too early. One user wrote, "Accusations of bias cloud Gilbert's commentary." Some went a step further and accused Gilbert of having personal bias. One user suggested, "The only time this guy posts about women's tennis is to show Iga's achievements in negative light. Disgusting behavior. I can just imagine it's because she never even considered to hire him." Another chimed in with a similar take, beginning to think he must have been rejected as a candidate for Iga's coach, because how are you this salty? Others pointed to statistics, dismantling the idea that winning a major without beating a top 10 player is an anomaly. A fan cited that it has happened 10 times in 30 slams since 2018, naming instances like Świątek herself at the 2022 French Open, Raducanu at the 2021 U.S. Open, and Barty's own 3 slam wins. One user simply wrote, "What happened to your man? What an awful tweet." In the heart of Wimbledon, where history breathes through manicured grass and tennis legends etch their legacies into emerald courts, a moment unfolded that transcended sport, statistics, and scorelines. It was not a championship point or a match-saving volley, but a gesture, a simple, human act, that captured the world's attention. As the 2025 Wimbledon women's final concluded with Iga Świątek lifting the trophy in dazzling dominance over Amanda Anisimova, it was Coco Gauff, not even in the final herself, who quietly claimed a different kind of victory, one of empathy, solidarity, and unshakable grace. A final that wasn't close. Amanda Anisimova's dream run to the final had all the makings of a Cinderella story. A comeback player, long overlooked, suddenly storming through the draw with power, precision, and poise. The tennis world watched with hearts swelling as she toppled top seeds and found her rhythm on grass. But fairy tales don't always end with tiaras and titles. Facing IGA Swiatek, the Polish powerhouse in peak form, Anisimova encountered an immovable wall of speed and strategy. The final scoreline, a 6-1, 6-2 dismantling, felt less like a contest and more like a coronation. As Swiatek collapsed in joy and relief on center court, cameras zoomed in on Anisimova's face, dry-eyed but tight-lipped, fighting the tide of humiliation that sometimes follows not just defeat, but being beaten. The crowd's applause tried to uplift her, but it was the applause you offer a performer who forgot their lines, not one who just finished a masterpiece. The moment after the moment, while Swiatek celebrated with her team and the trophy ceremony commenced, a figure moved softly from the wings. Coco Gauff, who had fallen to Anisimova in the semifinals in a bruising, emotional three-set battle, appeared near the player's box and approached Amanda. There was no grand announcement, no media call. Just one 21-year-old offering a moment of quiet presence to another 23-year-old whose dreams had just scattered like chalk dust on center court. Gauff didn't bring cameras or commentary. She brought a hug, firm, long, wordless. The kind of hug that says, I know what it's like to lose in front of the world. I know how much you gave. And I'm here, not because I'm supposed to be, but because I want to be. Not just rivals, but mirrors. The moment resonated across screens and headlines, not because it was flashy, but because it was rare. In a sport often sculpted around individualism, psychological warfare, and the lonely battle across the net, what Coco Gauff did was revolutionary in its softness. Amanda Anisimova had been her opponent days earlier, had denied her a shot at the final, had bested her on the biggest stage. And yet, Gauff was among the first to comfort her, not as a rival, but as a peer, a fellow woman in the trenches of professional tennis. Their careers had often intertwined. Both were teenage sensations, both Americans, both heralded as the next big thing at impossibly young ages. But while Coco had steadied her rise, winning a Grand Slam, enduring losses, and maturing before the cameras, Amanda's path was bumpier. Personal loss, mental health struggles, coaching upheavals. Her triumphs were hard-won, and so was her vulnerability. Maybe that's why Gauff's empathy rang so true, because she saw Amanda not just as a fallen finalist, but as someone who had crawled back to the summit, and who, in losing, still showed the courage of a champion. Beyond the scoreboard, what Coco Gauff did may not find its way into the official Wimbledon archives. No stat line will record it, but for many fans, that moment defined the tournament. Because in sports, we often think only in terms of greatness, titles, trophies, records. But there's another kind of greatness, the ability to elevate someone else in their lowest moment, to honor not just the game, but the people who play it. For Amanda, that hug may not erase the sting of defeat, but it likely reminded her she wasn't alone, that she belonged, that she was seen. And for Coco, it was a quiet triumph that revealed as much about her character as any match ever could. The maturity of Gauff. Gauff's growth has been one of tennis's most compelling narratives. From the 15-year-old who stunned Venus Williams at Wimbledon in 2019, to the poised leader of the Players' Council, and now the emotional cornerstone for a peer in pain, she has evolved before our eyes. This Wimbledon, Coco's story wasn't written in the final. It was written in the wings. It was a lesson in sportsmanship and empathy, in how to lose with grace and win with heart, even when the scoreboard doesn't bear your name. She reminded us that being a champion isn't always about holding the trophy. Sometimes, it's about holding someone who just dropped it, the echo of a gesture. Social media quickly lit up with praise. Fans, commentators, even legends of the game shared the clip of Gauff's gesture. Some called it the moment of the tournament. Others saw it as a generational shift, a new wave of tennis stars who don't just compete, but connect. Billie Jean King tweeted, "This is what leadership looks like." Coco Gauff continues to be a light for the sport. And in locker rooms, living rooms, and Little League courts around the world, Young athletes, especially girls, watched and learned. Not about forehands and footwork, but about grace. About how to be fierce and kind, competitive and compassionate, unflinching in ambition but never unfeeling. An era of emotional intelligence. It's worth noting that this wasn't a one-off act for Gauff. She has often used her platform to speak on social justice, mental health, and authenticity. She represents a generation of athletes who refuse to be boxed in by wins and losses, who insist that being human is not a weakness, but a superpower. In an era when elite sport can feel robotic and rehearsed, Coco Gauff is refreshingly real. And that realness, raw, unrehearsed, generous, may be her most powerful weapon yet. Looking forward, Wimbledon 2025 may be remembered as IGA Swiatek's crowning moment, and deservedly so. Her clinical brilliance cannot be overstated. But somewhere in the shadows of that victory stood Coco Gauff, offering a blueprint for a different kind of legacy. Not one measured in majors or millions, but in moments. Moments where she chose to show up, to soften the edges of loss, to be more than just a player in a draw sheet. And as Amanda Anisimova finds her footing again, whether in finals or further falls, she'll likely remember that hug. Not just as a balm for her pain, but as a beacon that reminded her, even in loss, she mattered. Final word, the champion's touch. Coco Gauff didn't win Wimbledon this year, but she won something else, something rarer, harder to define, and more enduring. She won the hearts of those who saw her. She reminded us what matters. And she proved, once again, that greatness isn't only measured in titles, but in how you treat those beside you when the lights go dim. Because in the end, rackets are raised and lowered, trophies shine and tarnish. But kindness, that endures, that echoes. And in Coco's quiet walk across center court to console Amanda Anisimova, Wimbledon may have witnessed its most unforgettable point of all.